This is take 2 of a previous lengthy video that I made in regards to what you're looking at right now. However, the previous video I made was over 40 minutes and I went off topic a little too often. So I'm going to try to reel it in and keep it to just this and games that are very similar to this and the films leading up to this game being made and the divorce of Marvel, of the X-Men and the Marvel Studios. We have Disney Marvel and then we had Fox Marvel. Fox Marvel was the first thing to show up, though. Without Fox Marvel, there'd be no Disney Marvel. Because Fox Marvel started everything with them, man. Blade in the 90s. We owe a lot to Blade in the 90s. We owe a lot to that guy, Wesley Snipes. The Blade PS2 game in the early 2000s, Blade 2, I believe it was. And that was excellent. It was excellent. There was a lot of Matrix-y stuff in Blade 2, because the Matrix had just released, and so naturally we're going to make Blade 2 a little bit more Matrix-y, and it was very fun. It was a very fun movie. Blade 3, nobody talks about that one, but Blade 2 is awesome. It was awesome. And we have a lot to owe to Blade. To Fox saying, let's make the X-Men. Let's do the X-Men. And they cast one of the greatest people to play the Wolverine character with Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman comes in as the Wolverine in the first X-Men movie, and honestly, he steals the show. He stole the trilogy. What was supposed to be primarily an ensemble cast ended up just being about Wolverine, primarily. Though, honestly, it was Wolverine and Rogue in the first movie. It was specifically about those two characters. And the Magneto character, so it was just around those three guys. And then the second movie hits, and we're still focusing on Wolverine, Rogue, and Stryker. Stryker being very connected with the Wolverine character, so it's still Wolverine. Though Wolverine and Jean Grey are starting to get flirtatiously flirty together. Cyclops. Ooh, nobody talks about Cyclops. And he was very, very, very forgettable. It was Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, so we talk about him. And then by the last stand, the first thing that happens is Cyclops gets killed off because he's just standing in the background of the previous two films. He was taken out of the story early in X2, and they had nothing to do with him in X1, so by X3 they just killed him off. Patrick Stewart, though, was fantastic in that trilogy, and then they kill him off in the third film. And it's still Wolverine's movie, though X3 finally feels like an ensemble cast. It does. Beast is here. Nightcrawler was in the second movie. Beast, Storm, and Logan. It was those three. They were having a really good dynamic together, and it was really fun. Magneto had plenty to do in this movie as well, and he was excellent. And then after the trilogy ended, when the very disappointing Dark Phoenix thing that almost killed the X-Men franchise, if not for the charisma of this character, and for the charisma of Ian McKellen as Magneto. Which is why they brought out this. They were going to revitalize the X-Men stuff with the Origins series. And the two standout characters in the original trilogy were Wolverine, played by Hugh Jackman, and Magneto, played by Ian McKellen. So they were going to have two origin movies, the first one being with the most popular character of the X-Men trilogy, the Hugh Jackman character as Wolverine. And after this movie, they were going to make the X-Men Origins Magneto, followed probably by somebody else, like maybe Gambit, I don't know. But they were going to make Magneto after this one. But this one didn't work. This one kind of failed. The comic book fans absolutely loathed this guy, this film. They thought that the Deadpool character was destroyed. They destroyed that, and then the dynamic between that, people didn't like that all that well. They hated the Gambit character in this. They just didn't like this movie at all. Me, though, when I watched X-Men Origins Wolverine, I had no idea who Deadpool was. So when the reveal of the Deadpool at the end of the movie, it didn't bother me because I had no friggin' idea who Deadpool was. By the time I finally learned who Deadpool was, naturally I preferred the real Deadpool to this mockery, but I had no idea who Deadpool was prior to watching this movie, so I wasn't insulted. I was just not as impressed as I was with the original trilogy. I thought the original trilogy had a better portrayal, though this fourth movie was still excellent with Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman was the reason that I watched this movie. Hugh Jackman and his charisma and his star power as the Wolverine character continued to impress and entertain throughout the film consistently. I liked him. And I would watch it subsequent amounts of times, up to at least 5 times, and it was still entertaining to me. Though, admittedly, it was not as good as the previous 3 X-Men movies. Though this one had the second amount of action, the second most amounts of action. I prefer X2 Logan to this Logan, but it's still fun. I still had a lot of fun. And that's the most important part of the movie-going experience, is how much fun can you have. This is why this is the second worst X-Men film to me, and that Dark Phoenix of the reboot series is the worst one to me. Because I watched the Dark Phoenix film at least twice, and I can't remember anything about it. I remember nothing about that movie outside of the dynamic of Professor Xavier and Magneto, played by the excellent James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender. Both characters portrayed both actors portray those characters so well, and I was focusing on their dynamic and their relationship between one another far more than the Dark Phoenix storyline that I was absolutely not interested in it. So by comparing it, I remember everything about this movie from start to finish, whereas I remember nothing about Dark Phoenix. When I rate films, I also rate it on how memorable it is. Even a terrible movie, if I can remember it from start to finish, I would consider that film far better of a payoff, because a film that is just forgettable is not worth the watch, even if it's bad. Bad and forgettable is worse than bad and memorable. Okay? Alright. But they made a video game tie-in to this excellent video game. They made a video game title to this excellent movie. Alright, they made an excellent video game title to this lukewarm movie. That's it! That's the one I'm looking for! They made an excellent video game tie-in to the lukewarm movie. Where this game shines is right there. Right there. In here, it's PG-13. PG-13. PG-13 Wolverine in the previous trilogy as well. It's PG-13 Wolverine. He cannot get loose. He cannot go as violent and bloody as the comics have depicted the Wolverine character to be. Until this game. When this game came out and you see that M rating and you see these claws, you just know that things are about to get God of War levels of bloody and violent, and they do. He tears people apart, body parts go flying, crimson goes spraying. When he gets hit, you could see the bullet holes in his shirt and how ragged parts of his skin fly off. He heals all of the damage, but it looks gritty as heck. Now naturally, this is a late 2000s era game. It feels just slightly above the PS2 era of video games, which Also, the Fox PS2 era video games are also very fun. Ghost Rider PS2, definitely check it out. Punisher PS2, definitely check it out. Both are excellent games, excellent characters. But back on topic here. This Wolverine, thanks to this rating and how bloody this character can get, his moveset is also very entertaining. It's fast-paced. He feels like Wolverine. The best comparison I can make is the Batman character and the Arkham series of video games. In Arkham Asylum, people have praised the game, saying that this Batman is the most Batman you ever played as Batman being, right? Well, in this game, this is the closest to Wolverine you're gonna feel like playing when you play Wolverine. You know, all of the other previous games that have the Wolverine character don't feel as Wolverine-y as this game. Outside of maybe the Marvel vs. Capcom games, the Wolverine in that is very fun. You know, admittedly, he's very fun in that. But this is where he feels so very Wolverine-y. You know, it's very fun. He was extremely fun to play as in this. And there's only one playable character, it's just Wolverine. And they do have to follow the movie's storyline, but they deviate a lot. In fact, the third level, the third major level in the game, is not in here at all. The third level, Wolverine has to track down Wraith. Wraith in this movie was played by Will.i.am. And that character and all the characters and their outfits and their designs are in here, so everybody who was introduced in this looking like they do in this, look like they do in this. They had to do that. But they could deviate a little bit, and they tried to where they could. And where they deviated, that was where the game absolutely shined. In the third chapter, Wolverine tracks down Will.i.am, who is Wraith. Wraith has been captured by Trask to use his powers and experiment on mutants to fuel his Sentinel program. So Wolverine, who has been asked by Raven, aka Mystique, yes, Raven, aka Mystique, is in this game. She is a very crucial part of the story in the third chapter. And she was part of the X-Force. She was part of that whole storyline segment in this game. And she and Will.i.am have a relationship. Wraith knocks up, or not necessarily knocks up because it's not a one-time stand. Wraith impregnates Mystique, and the child is reportedly going to be Kurt Wagner. That's what you can imply from it, because you know the Nightcrawler character is green and he could teleport. Not green. The Nightcrawler character is blue, and he can teleport. I'm getting words mixed up. You know, I hear the words are being said correctly in my head, but they're not being said correctly when I speak them. So the Nightcrawler character is blue, and he can teleport. Mystique is blue, and Wraith can teleport. So when these two parents get together, you get a child with both of those things. It's excellent. It is an excellent little nod, an allusion to that in X2. So that's fine. They did that little liberty, they took the liberty, and that's why Mystique is in the game. And she's fine. I loved the third chapter. Wolverine is going through Trask's Sentinel factory. He ends up fighting a couple of Sentinels. There's a big boss fight with the Sentinel character, and it was so much fun. It was the best boss fight in the whole game. The fun, the most entertainment I had ever had in this game was in that third stage. The final stage is on Stryker's Island, and it wasn't that fun. You had to fight Victor Creed and then the Deadpool character. It was very disappointing, very blah, very bland, very boring. But you could tell this game was really trying to do that Sentinel part of the storyline. Because after you fight Deadpool in this game, the final level, they have a cutscene set into an undisclosed point in the future where Trask has unleashed his Sentinels, and he has a vendetta against Wolverine, and Wolverine breaks free from his chains to fight the Sentinels and track down Trask. And then the game cuts to credits. So it's sequel baiting. The sequel never happened, though, because this movie failed. So we never got X-Men Origins Magneto, and we never got X-Men Origins Wolverine 2 on the video game side, which is very disappointing to me. because I loved that third chapter. I really wanted to fight the Sentinels again. It was very good. Now, gameplay-wise, it is very similar to Deadpool. That's why I have this out. Gameplay-wise, this game came after this. About 4 years after this game came out, this game's out. This is a better storyline. This is better, very crisp movement and better graphics, but they share a lot of similarities. The gameplay element. The gameplay element's very similar, at least with the swords and stuff. This does have third-person shooter mechanics. This one doesn't have any shooter mechanics, but this one does. But in regards to swinging the swords and the combats, the combos, and learning new combos and learning new stuff like that, the exact same game, but very similar gameplay setup there. What else? The healing factor. They both regenerate. The healing factor is the exact same in this. When they're in combat, they heal slowly. Outside of combat, they heal fast. It's the exact same thing incorporated with their health bars. Same thing there. What else? Oh, yeah. The lack of enemy variety in this. Very, very poor enemy variety. Let's see. The enemy variety. We have a tribal. We have a guy with a gun. We have a guy with a gun who can go invisible. And we have a robot. And then we have a mystical blue energy thing. About 5 to 6 enemy types in this game. Period. There's nothing else. Just 5 to 6 enemy types. It's very, very bland, disappointing. It's the exact same thing in here. You give it about 5 to 6 enemy types. Maybe even less. It's a budget. They're both budget titles. And that's why they couldn't afford to have a lot of stuff here. But they share that in common. The level designs, also they share in common. They're very bland hallways. They're not exactly much to look at. The reason you play these games is to play as the character. They're very fun to play as. So, you don't really need to look at the guys they're cutting up. You just need to enjoy playing as them cutting up these guys, if that makes sense. The boss variety is not that good, though the Sentinel in this is excellent. The Sentinel fight. What else? The platforming segments. Both games include platforming, and they're both very similar to one another, so there you go again. They're very similar games. I would say this one sneaks ahead in terms of story, but this one sneaks ahead in terms of playability of the Wolverine character. I prefer to play as Wolverine than I would prefer to play as Deadpool. Though the Deadpool, this game is extremely entertaining. The story is extremely entertaining. It's very fun. Nolan North voices Deadpool, and we know why he voices Deadpool, because he's so excellent with his delivery, with his lines. It is so well written, very fun. The jokes and gags, the potty humor. It is excellent. So if I were to tell you which game you should play first, though, you should play this one first, because this one came out in like 2009. This comes out in 2013, so this one you should definitely play first, followed by this game. But I definitely recommend that you play both. And play Ghost Rider on the PS2.